All right, Dan Clark here. I'm going to do pure competition today, a little Excel file that takes a look at this industry where producers produce homogeneous products. One seller can't really determine the price. They're called price takers. They take the price from the industry. So there are many sellers. It's easy barriers to enter or leave the market. And the industry here on the left will set the price. Of course, there's a downward sloping demand curve and an upward sloping supply curve for the industry that sets the price. And then the individual firm takes that price, which will be their marginal revenue, as we'll see in the Excel file. And we'll look at the average total cost for a firm, the marginal cost for each firm, where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, of course. That's profit maximization output. And then we'll see if the firm is making a profit or loss, if they should shut down, if they should keep going. Do this pure competition example, looking at costs. So here we're selling what? We're selling fish per pound or something. Maybe crabs. I like crabs. They've gone up in price, but so here we're doing output over here in column A, how much we can produce in crabs, depending how many crab pots we put out. So 0 to 15, let's say this is in hundreds of pounds or something. And then, so at a higher output, again, we have some fixed costs and variable cost. We know the fixed cost, of course, is the one boat I have, paying myself a wage. The variable cost, if I put out more output, I got to get more crab pots, I got to get more buoys, maybe I have to get more of a license. So the variable costs go up with the level of output, right? Fixed costs, of course, do not change with the level of output. So we're just going to fill in all these other basically columns and see how it works out graphically. So total costs, right? The total cost, of course, I got fixed cost and I got variable cost in columns A and B. So I'm just going to take my equal sign, and then total cost is just the variable cost here in B3 plus, I'm going to click on the C3, right? And then when the formula is done, always enter. And then I can always throw it down with my autofill, right? Get that symbol there and click twice. It'll know to go as far down as it has to go. Here only 13 rows, sometimes it's 30,000 rows with that double click. So the average fixed cost. So the average is going to be the fixed cost at a certain point divided by the output, right? So I don't want to do it in this row 3 because I don't want to divide the 180 by the 0 output, because then I'll get the famous NA, not applicable. You can't divide something by nothing. I hate that error message. So I'm going to start here on row 4 where my first output is 15. So the average fixed cost equal is going to be the fixed cost at this 15 output, that 180 divided by the 15. Enter that in, it is done, and then I could just copy it down and go to the next one in the next column, but I'm going to make my life easier, and because the average variable cost is going to be this, what, 280 divided by 15. The average total cost is going to be this 460 divided by the 15. So I'm always dividing basically these two other columns, the ones next to it, by the 15 in row A. So I'm going to double click on this formula, and then anywhere inside this A4, this is the famous absolute sign. Again, if you want to use Excel in business, you have to know this, right? I'm just going to hit my F4 key. I don't want the dollar sign in front of the 4 because I want to go down to 30, 45. So I'm just going to hit my F4 again. Nope, not the 4. F4 there. Basically the dollar sign in front of the A. So when I copy it down, it's going to go B5 divided by A5, because the 4 is is not absolute. When I copy to the next column over to the right, it's going to go to C4 divided by $A and then 4. Well, let's see. I'm just going to enter this in. Then I'm going to double click to go down. Then while it's still selected, go to the bottom and get the autofill and click and drag over to the right. So this here, I'm just going to check, right? The 1707 here, the average total cost at 75 output. That better be this number here, the 1280 divided by the 75. So if I double click there, yeah, there's that 1280 divided by the 75. D8 divided by $A8. Absolute. Just try to look at the logic of it. Very logical. All right, I'm going to escape out. My general rules, when I'm putting a formula in, I enter. If I go into an existing formula, and just to see it, I escape out. Your life is a lot easier. You will live a lot longer, less ulcers if you follow that simple rule. Marginal cost is going to be, so again here, what's the cost of basically the next additional unit? So what we're going to do here in this one is, it's a little tricky formula, but nothing that hard. We're going to take basically the change in total cost, right? Again, from going to 0 output to 15, I'm going to take the change in the total cost between these two numbers divided by the change in the output. That will give you my marginal cost. So follow along, not too hard. Equal, I'm going to do some lowercase math and then some uppercase math. So put a paren. Equal, open paren, what did I say? Yeah, I'm going to do my change in total cost, right? So the 460 minus the 180, close paren, divide by, open paren, and then the change in output for this, again, from 0 to 15. So I'm going to take the 15 minus the 0. I'm going to close my paren, and then that looks good to me, right? So nothing's absolute here because we're just going to copy it down. So for the next one, it's going to be basically this 680 minus the 460 divided by the 30 minus the 15. So everything is in sync to copy down on this particular formula. Enter that in, and then I'm going to autofill it down. 2 clicks there, bang. There's my marginal cost, right? And of course, marginal cost goes down and then starts going up, right? There should be a nice curve to it. Fine, I'm moving on. My marginal revenue is, and again, here I'm selling, what I'm selling? I'm selling crabs, right? So right now the market price is $18 per crab. It doesn't matter how much I produce because this is a pure competitive market. I have to take what the market gives me. So for this one, I'm just going to go here, this $18. I'm going to absolute this with the F4 key. That wasn't the F4 key, excuse me. Escape if there's a problem. Now I'm going to hit F4. That was F5 by mistake. And then there, $M, $3. We really only need the $sign in front of the 3, but for me, it's just the one cell that 18 is in, so both should be absoluted, the column and the row. It's just etiquette. It's just the way it should be done. Fine, I throw this down, should be 18 all the way down, good. So far, so good. So total revenue, right? So here, what we're going to do in this one, we're just going to, what? Total revenue is just the price, or the marginal revenue, right, which is really the price, times how much the output, or how much we're producing, right? So it's just a simple formula. Marginal total revenue is just the price, which is marginal revenue, times the output. So here, if I'm just producing 15, we're making 270 bucks, right? That's my total revenue. I'm just going to make that a $sign. I don't care about pennies right now. And I'm going to throw this thing down. Boom. So my total revenue going up and up and up and up. Maybe I should produce at 150 output. Look at the total revenue is at its highest. But an economist would say, no, we're not done yet. We have to figure out the profit. And for the profit, here I'm going to start in row 3 because I want to see what the profit is if I don't produce anything. Basically, if I shut down, what's my profit going to be? So profit, of course, is going to be, actually I'm going to move the total revenue back up too because I want the total revenue 0 for this first one. So again, all I did was hit here and I auto-filled up because I just want this, oh, now I'm messing up, undo, leave it like that, never mind. Profit is going to be the total revenue, of course, minus my total cost, right? What I take in minus what I pay out. So profit is going to be the total revenue. So for a 0 output, of course, there's 0 total revenue, but minus my total cost, which are what? This 180, right? For this, again, it's 0 output. So of course, my profit is going to be negative 180. If we don't produce anything, this is what we still got to shell out in our fixed costs. And I'm just going to throw this down. And now we can see where we're the most profitable, and basically it's always where MR equals MC, or where marginal revenue is closest to marginal cost, right? So at this output of 90, our marginal cost is 17 and our marginal revenue is 18, our profit is maximized at 80. If we produced at, again, the 105 output, our marginal cost will be fairly above our marginal revenue, and then we still be profitable, but not as much as producing at 90. So we need to graph all these things to make it really look good and play around with price, because the poor blue crab fisher people are a slave to the market. Now, what happens if price goes down? What happens if price goes up? When should they shut down? So what do I want to graph? I want to graph not my average fixed cost, I don't care about that, the average variable costs and the average total costs, marginal cost of marginal revenue. That's what I want to graph, those 4 things. So I don't want to graph the blank cells here, but I do want to use these labels. So I'm clicking up here in F2, and this is a little tricky, so just hang with me. You click once in F2, and then let go. Hold the control key down and click and drag then down to the 1927. I'm still holding on my control key, but I've let go of my mouse. So I'm clicking once on ATC, and then I'm clicking and dragging all at once. You got to do it in one stroke. The numbers down below. Marginal cost, all of these numbers, marginal revenue, all of those straight numbers, and that's all I want to graph, really. Well, we're going to put output in for the x-axis in a second, but first let's insert our graph. So insert over here, I'm doing a line graph. I like the one with the little dots on it, and there's my graph down below. So I'm just going to click here. It looks beautiful. So let's clean it up a little bit here. For the first, let's put the output down here on the x-axis. So to do that, I'm still on the chart. If you click off the chart, your menu will change. So I'm clicking back on the chart and going on to select data. And again, the horizontal category, I don't know why they can't just say X, but I'm going to edit this and then select range. My cursor's blinking in there, so I'm just going to click on output, and again I have to have the same symmetry as the other series I did, so one click on output and then hold the control key down and do 15 to 150 and then OK again, and boom, there's my output down on the bottom. And then what else am I doing here? I want to change my scaling, right, because just make it look better. I'm going to start my Y scaling here at 10, so I'm just going to double click anywhere in this scaling area. Pops up on the right, minimum is 10. Fine, boom, that looks good. And I can just X out of this thing in the corner because I don't need to see it anymore. My chart title should be crab. Profits, no crab, and a market. Does it for me. I'm going to shrink it up a little bit, and of course there's our great graph here. I'm going to throw it out to the right. So here you can see again the green line is my marginal cost. Again, goes down and goes up. Always hits the average variable cost and then the average total cost at its minimum points. And as long as this purple line, which mine is purple, yours may be different, my marginal revenue is above, or marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Again, that's my profit maximization. As long as that's above the, again, total fixed cost, we're making profits. I can see it graphically. But the problem is, it is a market. It's a competitive market, well, pure competition market, so the price of crab could go down. And let's say it drops to 18. I'm just going to change this, what, in M3 I am 16. And then bang, there's my marginal revenue line drops down. And then you can look over here on my numbers and see where marginal revenue is close to marginal cost, as closest point is right here, right? And row 8, and we have a negative profit of 80. Should we close down? No, that would be a mistake, right? Because if we close down and go to 0 output, like on row 3, then our profit is minus 80. Our profit is basically better. A negative 80 is bigger than a negative 180. So here we should keep going, right? We're covering basically our variable costs. If the price drops farther, then we could be in trouble. Let's see if we go down to 14. Bang! Oh, that is bad news. And I can see my marginal revenue line here is below my average variable cost, and that is bad news. And we can check it out here where marginal revenue is closest to marginal cost is right here at output of 60. So my profit maximization is 220, but then it would make sense to shut down, right? Because instead of losing 220, if I shut down, I'm only losing 180. So it's a quick graph Excel spreadsheet to figure out this pure competition. I'm going to make it back to a nice price, $17. Now let me do it $20. The price of blue crab goes really up. Bang! And then we're making great profits here. So quick graph, quick spreadsheet, some quick graphs. You can save it, play around with it, try and review it for the test. Where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, that's where there is basically profit maximization. Thanks for viewing. Forgot how to turn this thing off.